Hey you, yes you. The odds of you not being subscribed to the channel are very high, so if you haven't already, it would mean the world if you'd subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew to help me go full time. Hope you all enjoy this one. Woods out. We have definitely seen players who stepped out of their normal stats and entered a Michael Jordan realm where they could score the ball at will and get buckets on anyone. But most recently, we saw this in the bubble where players like TJ Warren and Jamal Murray took their game to the next level. And we also saw a glimpse of this the other night when Collin Sexton of the Cavs dropped a career high of 42 points and got the dub against the team that is supposed to win it all this year. And today, we will be discussing exactly what this performance in game by Sexton showed about him, and as well as the Cavs team moving forward. But before we get into today's video, let me just say this. I know this was just one game. In fact, we could never see a performance like this out of Sexton again, but the opposite could be true as well. So let's just get right into this game and what it tells us about Sexton and how the Cavs are playing him, which makes them so lethal this year. Let me just say, this game was honestly just wild, and Collin Sexton could not have picked a better game to go off than this one, because that game was the first time that Kyrie Irving would play with his new star James Harden, and it's safe to say that almost every NBA fan was watching this game. Collin Sexton scored a career high 42 points in a wild double overtime win over the Nets in Kyrie Irving's return on Wednesday. But what makes this interesting is that for the people who have actually been watching the Cavs, this isn't even that surprising because Collin Sexton has been balling all season long. In his third year, Sexton is averaging 27 points per game on 53.4% shooting, including 50% from the three, which in itself is insane for someone that young. And just in general, his surprising dominance and firepower on the offensive side of the ball has helped the Cavs jump out to one of the most surprising starts in the league, sitting at the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. It's no secret that Sexton has always been able to get buckets since he entered the league, but now he's showing everyone that didn't know who he really is, an elite shot taker and shot maker. And now, the Cavs offense is structured around him, and Cleveland doesn't need Sexton to be the point guard of the team, which shows that they are definitely learning from their mistakes. What I mean by that is when Sexton was drafted by the Cavaliers in 2018 with the number 8 overall pick, they gave him the keys to the offense as a rookie, and it was clear that that was never his game. Let's be real here. Collin Sexton is not Luka Doncic or Trae Young, who can score and pass at a high level and run the offense. Sexton goes on the basketball court to do one thing: get buckets on the offensive end. And if you don't believe me, let's just dive right into the stats and look at his assist averages in comparison to the other top scorers in the league this season. So if you look at this chart, we've got Dame, who's averaging 28 a game and almost getting 7 dimes as well. Curry, who is just about at the same level. Then KD, Kyrie, LaVine, Giannis, and Beal, who are all around the same scoring-wise as Sexton. And then we have Collin Sexton, averaging almost half of the assists as all these other guys. Cleveland fans might not like this, but just hear me out here. Building a team around someone with a kind of one-track mindset like Sexton is difficult to say the least. So far, based on what we've seen in his career, it's clear that Sexton plays like the 6th man whose job is to change the tempo of the game coming off the bench and jacking up shots. Well, except he does this the entire game, because he's starting. Teammates can definitely get frustrated when one player like Sexton dominates the ball and doesn't pass. We saw this last season when Kevin Love straight up threw his hands in the air and walked off the court last season when Sexton looked him off in the post one too many times. Sexton even did this last night against the Nets. Now don't get me wrong, I know I might have just made this sound a bit negative, but the Cavs have 100% made this work and adapted so Sexton can play his best game in their offense, as well as the fact that I'm not downplaying the fact that he's a solid defender as well. But the Cavs are running the offense through players at a number of positions, which allows Sexton to focus on what he does best: score the ball. He's 4th on the team in assists behind Garland, Larry Nance, and C.D. Osman, well, 5th if you count Taurean Prince, who made his debut on Wednesday, and he is just in front of Andre Drummond and Damian Dotson. The Cavs now have a lot of players who can distribute the ball and make up for the fact that passing is not in Sexton's bag. Specifically, I'm talking about Kevin Love, who is an underrated elite passing man to say the least, but he's also only played 2 games this season because of a calf strain. But this Cavs team has many more great passers on their squad. As a result, Sexton is playing as free as anyone in the whole NBA. Defenders know what's going to happen when he gets a screen from the top of the key. He's not going to pass it. He's pulling up for the tray. But that doesn't mean they can stop it. We literally just saw this on display when Collin Sexton scored 20 straight points on Wednesday during both overtimes. and took turns scoring against all 3 of Brooklyn Nets stars. What makes this kind of funny is there's nothing complicated about what Sexton did to torch the Nets. He has a deep range jumper and he can shoot off the dribble anywhere from the floor. It's just a matter of probing and waiting for the defense to give him an opening to fire away and make them pay. Almost 40% of Collin Sexton's offensive possessions this season have come as the ball handler in the pick and roll. And because of this, he's a part of a new breed of scoring guards who make a killing against defenses who play traditional drop coverage. With the big man sagging back into the paint, it's easy buckets for Sexton anytime he wants to take advantage and torch them. But let's go back to this chart of top 8 scorers in the NBA. Not including Durant and Giannis, who are players with unique and crazy builds to say the least, the other 6 are guards who most definitely get their offense off of the pick and roll. And Collin Sexton is the most extreme version of this trend that is taking over the league, which is what makes him such an elite shot maker and shot taker for the Cavs. It does hurt a little bit to see the assist numbers down so much, but what makes up for it is the fact that Collin Sexton is at the bottom of the list of stars in turnovers as well. But let's just get into why this makes the Cavs a legit playoff team and what it has allowed them to do. To say the least, the Cavaliers have taken a huge advantage of Sexton's ability to be a one-man offense, because now that Sexton can dominate the offense, the Cavs have a lot more defensive-minded lineups on the court at all times. Now don't get me wrong, this is not perfect, especially because the Cavs have pretty much the worst offense in the league, but they also have the best defense. And let me just say that if the worst offense in the league can drop that many points against a championship favorite, they might not be the worst anymore. But what makes this Cavs defense so lethal is the starting front court of Drummond and Nance to cover Sexton on defense. And what's crazy about this is that this front court's presence makes them so much more effective on offense despite neither of them being able to be a great floor spacer. We saw so many instances in the past 2 games where Nance and Drummond were just babying the Nets in the paint and dunking all over them. And covering for Sexton on defense is the same on the perimeter, where rookie Isaac Okoro guards the opposing team's best scorer on the defensive end and stays out of Sexton's way on the offensive side of the ball. Collin Sexton's scoring gets the hype, but the Cavaliers are primarily winning games with their defense, which is the polar opposite of the Nets team, who is just trying to outscore everyone with their big 3. Cleveland is dead last in the NBA on offense and number 2 on defense this season, which is what makes their team so interesting. And the harsh truth is, even that much offensive success might be unsustainable with the lineups they're running. Sexton is a great shooter, don't get me wrong, but his Stephen Curry percentages that we've seen so far this season will more than likely decline at least a little bit. What Collin Sexton needs to do is take the leap in his game and start driving to the cup more and drawing fouls, because a player like him needs to get to the line a lot more. For the volume that Collin Sexton is shooting at, he is not getting to the free throw line nearly enough. He's only getting 4.9 attempts per game, which is really only like 2 fouls drawn. This would help him out so much on nights when his jumper is off, because he could still draw contact and get easy buckets for the team at the line. I'm just going to give a shout out to JB Bickerstaff, who is now the coach of the Cavs, because this man deserves a lot of credit for the Cleveland Cavaliers' early success. Next week will be a challenge for him to say the least, because he will have Garland and Love back in the offense, which will destroy the team's defense. I do think he can make it work, but the stats say otherwise. Kevin Love and Darius Garland plus Collin Sexton had a defensive rating of 117.6 in 929 minutes last season and only have played 31 minutes together this season. So at least 2 of these players I just mentioned have to step up on the defensive end, and I don't think it'll be Sexton, to say the least. One thing that stood out to me in the game versus the Nets is just how big and athletic the Cavs were around Sexton. I mean, they closed the game with Sexton, Osman, who's 6'7", Prince, who is 6'7", Nance, who is 6'7", and Jared Allen, who is 6'11". That's how you cover for a bad defender at the point of attack, to say the least, and the Cavs just absolutely killed it with their lineups. If the Cavs are able to mesh the talent they have together into a solid squad on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, there is no doubt in my mind this is a solid playoffs team. But I guess all we can do is watch this Cavs team try and build something great with their young core and just see what happens. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, it would be literally clutch if you could subscribe if you're new and join the Woods crew, as well as leaving a like down below. That is legitimately all it takes for me to go full time. Regardless, I appreciate all you guys still watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Woods out.